Danoyan, this is your book in your hands here. Entering the children's book market is a tough proposition. But your book, which is When Dad Grows Up in English, has a father with a very lively fantasy relating stories to a child who's very down to earth. Does that reflect your relationship with your children?
Well, in a way, first of all, it reflects the fact that I read to my kids. Those are still ready to be rented. But certainly my father used to read to me and I read to my kids, and I think it's a worthwhile experience to do if you're not doing it, and we have a lot of fun. But certainly also some of the text itself, that means the fact that the father wanted to be world champion in gymnastics. That's correct, and it didn't happen.
It did happen. Did not happen.
It did not happen.
Does it reflect your own childhood dreams?
Well, I wouldn't say it's childhood dreams, but certainly you can find in the text a few things that I was thinking about of becoming or had some thoughts about. But I think the interesting thing here is that these are not very special things. Many kids have such ideas, would love to be, anchors on television and so on and so forth, lion tamers. It's not that unusual. But I think the little unusual thing here is the conversation between the father and son, and the fact that the father stays with his high
dreams, ambitions,
ideas and hopes, and the kid is much more down to earth and tells him, some of the things are dangerous, some of the things you shouldn't do, and the dialogue, and this is something that I have with my kids, a long dialogue, almost on everything.
So are your kids happy with the way you tell your stories?
Well, the younger ones are, I think, more happy, but I still try to do my best, not to tell them when I see that it irritates them, and there are such moments.
You're the Deputy Head of Mission at Israel's Embassy in Denmark. You're the Cultural Attaché as well, I believe. And you grew up in one of those turbulent regions of the world. In Israel, the population is made up of Jews from many countries. How important is your family history and the history of the Jews in your life and work with culture and literature?
Well, in my life and work, it's tremendously important. I don't think you can take it out for 1 second in almost everything I do. But in writing for kids, it has a very living part. Of course, here and there you can find moments which are relevant, but in general, I would say it's not something that is there. Of course, the place where you were born, the people you grew up with, your history, your personal history, your country's history, it's all very relevant, and from that it comes. And I don't see such a book coming out in, let's say, at least some of the Arab countries yet. Certainly not if I wrote it and published there, as you know, they would not be very favorable for that. No, by the way, we have an Arab translation, so when we will find the right publishing house, I hope it will happen.
That leads me to think about the Israeli-Palestinian Peace Organization, IPCRI, which has just published a private translation of the Yacoubian building by the Egyptian author Ala al-Aswani. Should literature not be above political conflict between Arabs and Israelis?
Well, I don't think literature should be above. I think the fact that everything should be published, I think that there should be freedom, not just of speech, but of thought. This is a very fundamental thing here in Denmark. I don't have to explain anything about it. But I think that a lot of the most interesting material in books and articles and materials in Denmark, especially in literature, came out dealing with the conflict. So you don't have to put the conflict aside and say, well, we shouldn't touch that because that shouldn't be one of the topics. Conflict is part of life, and it has huge implications on what happens in the family. If my family, my close family, lost a father, a close person, and then his son, and then that's my aunt. She lost her husband and then his son. They both during wars between Israel and the Arab world. You can't take it out and say, well, if you write a story of the family, it's part of it. And it is sad. I wasn't part of this small family, but still, I remember going there. I remember, everything around it. So the conflict is around us all the time. So no doubt that it goes into the discussions, it goes into the debate, and it goes into not just the dreams, but also the literature. And it has to be like that. Of course, sometimes you have a feeling that it's a bit exploited, a bit too much. And I can tell the readers that in this book, there's nothing that is connected to the conflict, at least not as far as I know.
Okay. I was thinking more that Israeli authors are published in Arabic translations, but the many Arab authors do not allow their works to be published in
You gave one example. First of all, you have to know that most of the Israeli writers are translated to many languages. Some of them to more than 70 languages. 70 languages are translations in Hebrew, both of children books and of adult books. But when you look at what is happening with the Arab world, unfortunately, we did not succeed yet to get to this dialogue with our neighbors, altering everything that has to do with literature. So Israel is making a huge effort on that. And there are all kinds of projects for corporations with specific publishing houses, and there's a lot of effort to translate materials, to offer them. There's a huge thing happening inside Israel, which involves many Israeli publishing houses having children books translated from Hebrew to Arabic and published. So there's a lot published, and quite a few of the leading famous names like David Rothman or Amos Oz were translated to Arabic and were published and others, of course, and were published in Egypt and in other places. But unfortunately, the cultural boycott that is happening in Arab countries and in some of Muslim countries, unfortunately, is very strong. And instead of breaking that, it doesn't seem to be breaking. It doesn't seem to be lowering profile. The other way around. When you look at the other side there were a few cases of people saying, just like you mentioned now, that they would not like to be, translated. I can only be sorry for them, especially if it's really people who care about others. Because I think the way, if you think Israel is wrong in something, is to try and persuade us. Tell us your story. If we know your personal story, maybe it will make a difference in what we think or what we do.
When that comes up, being translated from the Hebrew, I understand you've written another book in Hebrew, which is yet to be published, The Golden Coins, perhaps. Die Gulden Münze. Die Gulden Münze. Yes. What is that about?
Well, that's a story about a kid and his grandmother. Mostly it's a story about a kid and his grandmother, special relations between actually the kid and his grandparents, I should say. Of course, the basic story is about the gold coins which were hidden sometime in Poland before the family fled to Israel. And in this mattress of those gold coins were inside. And the line of the story is how, from a meeting between the grandfather and the son, they get to a moment where the son is saying, well, I know this mattress will be can you stop? You have to take off this part. Can you stop?